Welcome to the Nesquin Community Plan Steering Subcommittee meeting of Monday, June 15th. Uh, we have committee members here. We have Lori Kovac, Guy Sievert, Tom Seep, and myself, Rand Cook. And we have guests from the public, Nancy Vandell, chair of the Nesquin CAC, and Sarah Absher from the Tillamook Community Development Department. So that's the introductions. And then I would ask the committee members if they would uh, approve today's agenda. So would you please indicate that you can just say yay if you've got if you're
Yay.
all excited and want to say yay.
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 Okay, Lori, that's a visual yay. Okay, we
We
got
are now verbal to
oh,
yay.
doubling down. Okay, we approve the agenda. And I don't know if you saw the minutes. I hope you did and read them. They were very exciting. So if I could get approval of the minutes or any edits if you have them. Any, nope, no edits. Okay, well, they were so brilliantly written, I'm sure there was no editing required. Okay, and then any declaration of conflict of interest by subcommittee members?
No conflict.
No,
No conflict.
Guy, I'm waiting on you.
I said no.
Oh, I didn't hear you. Okay.
Well,
Blowing my nose at the time. Sorry.
Oh, well, that could be confused,
That
but
could be,
that
and that could be a
could
conflict.
be anything. Okay, thank you all for that. And so I think we're going to go straight to Sarah regarding the edits that she has for us, and I think maybe they're prioritized based on the interest from the meeting the other day, or however you want to handle it, Sarah, just jump in here.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So let's start with this. I'm going to go ahead and do a share screen. What I've done is I've gone through the list of the table Tom provided, and I've been working through that. And so the first thing on the list, the Kinnickinnick Avenue, I am still waiting for verification on that in terms of whether or not it actually is a beach access. So looking at plats and some different things, I don't want to guess.
Okay.
Right. So Public Works and OPRD, because I'm not sure. It's interesting because everybody has their definitions of public beach access and identification of what those are. So we're either going to keep it or remove it. What'll get interesting is if Public Works confirms one way and OPRD confirms another. So hopefully that's the one thing that will not happen.
Okay.
So as soon
well,
as
maybe if there's three of us, we could vote and majority wins.
we just decide. Totally.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that.
Well, Sarah, there are 2 points along Hawk, not just Kinnickinnick, but and then of course it raises the question as to can it be can we even list it as a beach access given the fact that the only way to access that beach access point is through private property.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, and I raised this actually with Chris a few weeks ago when it was first determined that Hawk from the S curve forward was going to be considered a private road. I just think we have to remove it as a beach access, as a public access, because it's that the street from the S curve on is not public anymore.
Correct. I agree with you on that, Guy. But my concern is that even if it's only available to the people in Nesco and North,
Yeah, but it's not.
it's still public. right? Because the people who have access rights along Kinnickinnick are the public. It's still public if it's not HOA maintained or one of those things. So that's where it gets sticky.
One has a a beach access sign that dates from who knows when, and the other one was taken down by locals who I guess didn't want people parking there. So
Yeah.
they're both ways you can get to the beach.
Right.
So as to how improved or maintained they are, I'm not sure that's ever been. There was probably initially some kind of place to pull over, but I mean, I've gone on those numerous times. They're pretty rustic, but they're trails through the woods and they work, so it's a long haul also. It's about quarter mile. Yes, Lori.
I have a safety concern because
Okay.
um, at various times I'm walking on the beach and people start talking about the tsunami that may come and what would you do if there was an emergency, blah, blah, blah. And if you're in that stretch of beach along there, if you were aware that that access was there, which locals are aware, you could potentially go up Kinnickinnick and get to the tsunami trail,
Mhm.
go up the tsunami trail. And so to me, even if that road is not considered public, which I have an issue with that too, but I have no power over
Yeah,
it,
it's a private road.
right?
Yeah.
Um, if it's a private road, it I don't know if they can allow access, like grant it, if there was a way to do that, but to me, giving up a straight shot, it's a very close shot to get to the one of the established tsunami escape routes.
Hmm.
You were walking on that part of the beach and the earthquake came, you'd want to get through the dunes as quick as you possibly could and up that
Mhm.
escape. And so, I mean, in an emergency, would you do that anyway? You would try to find the quickest route, but
Ab-
if it was a
Absolutely.
public access that people knew about as part of that, it would be more likely to save more people than if they just randomly ran across the dune trying to figure out how to get through.
Mhm.
So to me, it's not something to just shrug your shoulders and say, oh, well, the county works department decided this was a private road, so we no longer can have a beach access.
But a private road is very different. And when we talk about the public, what it means is it's not a private beach access that's held in ownership or has limited access rights to one or two people, right? Because when I think of a private beach access, what I think about is like in subdivisions like the Capes in Oceanside. They have as part of their plat a beach access. It is meant for the people of that development, but it's not public. And in this case, the other thing we don't know, which is why I asked OPRD, is we don't know where the public access lies until it hits Kinnickinnick, right? Because the other thing is if it's an easement, it could go up to Kinnickinnick. And the part from the public beach to Kinnickinnick may be public. Now, anybody that takes it, then walking in through a private road is a whole different conversation. But when we talk about public, the we're not that and the road are two separate things. And what I'm trying to figure out is how separate are they?
Sarah, is there an ease a road easement? Let's forget about the actual road for a minute because we
Mhm.
all know that the road didn't, if, at least by story, I don't have any information other than what people tell me third, fourth hand, that there is a road easement that goes from the S curves to North Nescoin. The road itself, the physical road, doesn't follow that easement. That's why we end up with the road built
Mhm.
on private property. So is it possible that Lori comes running up during a tsunami, locates, gets on a marked easement that goes from North Nescoin all the way down to the Tsunami Trail, and she could
Mhm.
follow that easement. So isn't there public access all along that way? Forget about the physical road. Isn't there public access?
So I'll show you what the plat looks like, right? Because for me, the first thing I do is I go to the plat, right? But the
Right.
plat is only going to show what's in the boundaries of the plat. So Randall, I'm going to share my screen real quick.
Okay.
Okay. So this is the plat for Nescoin North. And you can see here's Kinnickinnick.
Wait.
And there's been some updates, as you can see with red pen.
But wait, this is Nescoin North?
Yes,
But
because this is where Kinnickin.
we're not
Right,
talking
but
about
that's not where the beach access is. It's
right,
actually farther down
south.
towards the Tsunami Trail.
Okay, so
Back
when you say
south.
Kinnickinnick Drive, I
Yeah,
have
no.
been looking in this area. That is
Ah,
what I have focused my
No,
attention on.
no,
I
yeah.
see.
We're talking about the 2 points, what we would refer to as the first fire hydrant and the second fire hydrant.
Okay, so let's go back to my map. Let's see if we can
Track it down.
so that I'm looking in the right place. Okay. No, this is good. This is good. Okay. So here is the vacated beach of Kawanda Shores, right? Or Kawanda Shores Beach. It'd probably help if I turned on the aerial photo, right?
And
Yeah,
shared
so
your screen.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Lori. Sorry, of course. Okay. Okay, I have not been looking in the right area. Okay. So, all right, can you guys see that?
Not yet.
yeah.
And now it's just starting.
Okay. So here's the gate, I think.
Okay, go back the other way.
Okay.
Very close to the S curve.
It's at the Knapp property, next to the Knapp property.
Yeah. That's one of them.
Right. And
Okay.
then
So let's see. Okay, so here's the S curve. Right here. Here's
Yeah.
Corvallis. S.
maybe it's this little gap between these two. Between 100 and 700, there's a gap. I wonder if that might be it.
Okay, let's look at that.
Where is that 900, the Tsunami Trail?
It could be.
Looks like it could be at least part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, because the one I was referring to is very close to the Tsunami Trail.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
that's very close to it.
So you see that access
800 is.
that
So 800 kind of looks like the easement because it runs all the way
800 is
along.
this triangular piece, I think. Now, this map may not be, yeah. So this is actually owned by somebody.
so what is the
How about this?
to the west of 800 is
100 is owned by Luke Sloan
no, that long strip that goes, it clearly looks like an easement.
right
Between
here.
1 and
Yeah.
700.
Yeah. So let's do this. All right, let me write this down. 5 South 1125 BC, 100. Okay. I'm going to change screens, but you guys should be able to see what I'm doing here. Go here. Online records. I appreciate the correction because I can reach back out and be like, never mind that email I sent you, and I will send them a map now that I know what we're actually talking about. Okay. Okay.
There, that funny little.
Okay. Yep, it's right. Yeah, so it's like this almost little dog leg here.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. A 602. Tate. Rotate. Okay. So this is not, oh wait, let me do it one more time. Okay. So here are the corners of that property right to the south of that dog leg we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And this was before, let's see, how old is this? This was done in 1955. I do not see any mention to the north of a pedestrian easement. Okay, but that's okay. Let's go to B556. I'm completely upside down. Okay. So here's your S curve.
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
there's narrow pieces there.
So there's nothing in here that says, and it's broke. It's see like where they have a line through here and you see
Yeah.
those circles, those mean monuments. And with it not being open, that means at least during this time, that was a continuous line. So if at some point there was some road right-of-way adjustment, like where what it shows here is Los Angeles came through and then jetted out to the west, you've got that broken line here. And you've got, it looks like something here may have been an entire piece at one time. Likewise, you see 1, 2, 3. But here's this. So my guess is that property we were just looking at may have been 1. Here's that 16-foot wide strip we're all interested in. And then 2 and 3 are the properties to the north. What was that a part of? Road right of way at Nesquin. You guys have probably also seen all of these. I have not, because I know you guys have other things that you guys have been interested in. But I have not. Okay.
Well, we know there's utility easements. It has to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they wouldn't show up on the property map, would they?
Not necessarily. It depends on what the purpose of a survey is for, Guy. Right? I mean, there's all kinds of weird stuff, random stuff you can get by looking at surveys because there's things they did that you didn't realize they were doing. And there's things that, yeah, I mean, it's just surveys can be like treasure and gold, or you don't get what you need. But again, I see the north line here of what was probably the original Nuscoin plat and the south line of marshlands. But I don't know, does the subdivision of marshlands sound familiar to you guys?
No.
No.
Okay, well,
It was interesting that Rand, did you see that the survey was Hirsch?
Yeah.
mhm.
Hirsch, Spear, and
Yeah.
those plots. And there's a couple houses on a couple of them.
Well,
Yeah,
that's Bob's dad, right? Had to be Hirsch.
Yeah.
this map is missing from, well, that's not good. Okay, let's see. Gerlinger addition to Nuscoin, which this is in the Breakers area, so that doesn't help us. me go to 5 South 11, 25. I think my best bet is to work through this to see if Public Works digs anything up. So what's interesting, so these maps are for tax and assessment purposes only, but Hawk Street does theoretically go down, see that, and take a turn.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And would that where it says Hawk Street, would that be county property?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Oh, there we
So
go.
before you had to do subdivision plats, you recorded your plat in the clerk office. I wonder if that's what we're looking at right there. See how
That
the road
line,
comes through at that angle?
yeah.
Well, and
Yeah.
then there's another one farther up towards the top of the sheet. That might be the second one that people talk about.
Mm-hmm. Take a look at this here real quick. They didn't have to be as detailed in 1907 as they do now.
No GPS.
And it says reserving, however, unto said Tillamook Land and Investment Company, its successors and assigns the exclusive right to lay, cut, construct, and maintain and operate along and upon said streets and roads and all thereof, water pipes, canals, ditches. I have no idea what that is. And other something for the conveying of water, but the rights something reserved shall not be exercised so as to deprive the public generally from use of a sufficient portion of said streets and roads to accommodate public travel thereon.
Ah,
Oh, interesting.
they are our public roads.
So let me send that off. I'm gonna actually save this because I think this is about as close as we're gonna get without taking a deep dive.
Yeah. And I think it's just as we do the plan, we just want to be clear, and it's not that we're not trying to relitigate all the back and forth that's going on the road. I think it's just for our purposes, how do we describe in general beach access points? I mean, where people, I mean, Lori's question, is like, it's a good question. So,
It is
Well,
a good question.
it may be that the tsunami trail markers and stuff need to
Gene,
be located on the beaches north of Corvallis because there's no other way to know where you would go in or what kind of access. It may be something to bring to the people who live north of the curve to say,
Mhm.
where do you want to designate saving people when we know the tsunami's on its way?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I've always
that maybe
thought,
is what? Oh, I lost you, Lori.
You're on mute.
I've always
It
Still
keeps
mute.
going
You
out,
went
Lori.
back.
I don't know why.
What about now?
Now it's
Yes.
good.
Okay.
Yep.
I actually have always thought that I was on a public property. I didn't realize I was trespassing, but there's a really quite established trail that's not at all hard to follow. You're not bushwhacking by any means.
No.
I think not the one that's closest to the S curse, but the next one up. So it would not take very much to make it more known as a tsunami
Mhm.
egress. Wouldn't take a lot of work.
Right. Yeah, and I think the families in that second group have always kind of maintained that and left the sign there and expect people to park to some degree, maybe not 20 cars, but 3 to 4.
But Rand, I was just thinking, again, Lori's walking down the beach, the ground starts shaking. We know because we've been up and down that stretch from Corvallis to North Nescoin many times, so we kind of know where the breaks are, where the two breaks are, the main ones.
Yeah,
But in general, most people don't. And
right.
so it would be great if we could, in fact, get this kind of straightened out and with whatever permissions we need to post a tsunami
Yeah,
escape sign on the dune
right.
and
That's what I'm
secure it so
thinking.
that people caught in between know this is where they can go.
Yeah, no, I agree.
It's a thought. Yeah.
And it might be that group that brings this forward. I think Tom's part of the group, and um, I put signs in with Bill Bush, so I know we have more signs too. We have a lot of stuff that could apply to this. So, well, let's do some digging in that
Yeah.
direction off meeting time, but some behind the scenes stuff from our point of view to say these are concerns we have, and here's the way we'd like to address them, and figure out who we need to talk to, who lives down there and who would be supportive of it. And I don't know if it'll get a legal easement, but it may get enough local support to put the signs up.
Well, and I would say any signage, obviously, we work with Dagami
Right,
and the Emergency Volunteer Corps, because really Dagami is the one that is the keeper of the maps and those verified evacuation routes.
right.
So actually, has anybody, I did not look because I thought I was focused on Nescoin North. Did anybody look at the tsunami map for Nescoin to see if this is identified as a mapped route?
Well,
I have
we
one
have,
on my refrigerator. I can go get it.
I think I've got it
Okay.
right here. Yeah, if you want, or I'm happy to go get it.
Tom may have one, but I don't know.
I don't
He may
think
have a
so. I
no
don't, I
digital
should
version.
have one. Well, I should have one. I'll look where it should be.
Okay. And I have Pete Alston just gave me his adaptation, erosion and adaptation plan, but I don't know if the tsunami uh, trails and things were identified in that yet. I don't think so.
Yeah, because I know that so we do the maps that we send to all the STR owners, right? They have to post the
Right.
Dagami tsunami evacuation routes in their rentals everywhere.
yeah.
And so I'm looking to see if I can find it really quick. Because I think the other thing I would say is, and this dovetails into some of the other policies and the areas, topics of interest that the subcommittee has, is what we must do is make sure that any work that we do is green lighted, especially in this case by entities like Dagami and Public Works, because those of you that, I worked briefly on the evacuation signage plan a couple of years ago, right, with Barb, Triplet, Bill Bush.
Yeah.
And we met with Chris Lady, and there were all kinds of transportation sign standards for location that ended up we spent time. Oh my gosh, I'm embarrassed. I can't remember her name, but we spent hours at her house doing the mapping, and then we found out we couldn't put them where we thought we could.
Yeah.
Right. So I would say, I think that is, when we talk about it as a beach access versus an evacuation route, I think we've got to make sure we can check all those boxes before we say those things.
Right.
Mhm.
And certainly state parks would have to approve anything going on the dune. I mean, my goodness.
Totally right.
So,
But I just am really thankful that now I know exactly where you guys are talking about. So thank you so much. That helps me be more effective in trying to help. And
yeah.
so, but I think, Lori, were you able to go grab your map? And good for you for having that on your fridge. That's amazing.
Well, I have a lot of visitors. So it shows the tsunami trail going
Is this the
east.
same one on the screen?
I was just gonna say it shows it
That's
east.
South Beach. Sorry, Lori.
It shows it east of Hawk Street, but not west. So the trail we're talking about from the beach to Hawk is not on the map that I have.
Okay.
Ah,
That is very important for us to know. Thank you. Because I was going to say, when we were doing the tsunami overlay zone and working on the tsunami facility improvement plans, I actually had Dagami in my car, and they were here for a couple of days. Oh my gosh, it was so much fun. But we verified all the evacuation routes in the unincorporated communities, and I remember driving up and down Hawk Street and stopping at those two access points on the east side, but I did not recall us doing anything on the west side.
Which, you know, it's a beach community. There's a lot of people on the beach. So it's really like not thinking through where people really are going to have to escape from.
Yeah.
Totally. Oh, I agree. And I'm wondering if it's because there's some private property limitations there. So I think if we can verify whether or not that's a public beach access, that actually may help Dagami as well when they go to update their maps.
Okay.
Well, also, I mean, whether it's public or not now, it could be a goal to get some public places for
Mhm.
people to get across there if
Mhm.
they had to.
Well, it goes back to, are those 2 points county roads?
Mhm.
At which point they would be public property. The 2 points that we're talking about.
Or are they easements dedicated to the public on the original plats that were never vacated?
I think they had street names to them.
Mhm.
But yeah, whatever.
Okay, so well, I've got my marching orders on that. That actually helps me refine my conversation and my questions. So I will move forward with that.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And to Lori's point, I think one thing that could be a goal, and this would go back to, is it part of the community plan? Is it part of that bigger desire to form a public safety task force where this conversation of working with landowners to secure those access routes, right? Because that might be something, and it might be more effective, quite frankly, in that larger group with the sheriff's office and others rather than a community plan.
Mm-hmm.
Because the community plan is not going to get you to any type of property owner agreement.
But
Because mhm.
it would show that the community is already worried and thinking about this.
Right.
It would be a support and not necessarily an action, but it would be support of action by an entity. So I think
Right.
it would be important to have it there, but it's not going to cause something to happen.
Right. The community desires, the community supports efforts, right? So that's the language I think we would want to see for that.
Okay.
A community deserves.
Yep, it's good. That's a good word. Okay. All right. So done with that one. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and do a share screen. And I hope that you guys can see. So Tom, you have these. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 policies.
I have taken the liberty to drop them into the
Oh,
next
good.
draft. So
Okay.
we could look at them as, most of them, I'm sure, except for the last one, I'm not certain where that goes. But okay,
Yeah,
here's
I
my,
want to talk to you about that. Yeah. Well, I don't know if these are like very viewable friendly. Yeah, and I can drop them in a Word document so I can zoom in. Let me do that.
well, I can share. Uh, I could share the screen I've got now. I've got it in Word.
Okay. Your favorite format?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Everyone's favorite format.
It's especially
Yeah.
Tom's favorite format.
Yeah, Tom's. It's so facile.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. So I have put together 16, policy 16, 19, 21, and 24, which to Tom's point, where does it go? We'll talk about that. Okay. So policy 16. Tell me what you think.
South Tillamook County Comprehensive Plan policies and implementing ordinances related to tsunami preparedness and recovery to promote the resilience goals of the county, including actions to direct and encourage new development and redevelopment such that over time the community's exposure to tsunami risks will reduce loss of life, reduce damage to private and public property, reduce social, emotional, and economic disruptions, and increase the ability of the community to respond and recover. That's a longer sentence than even I usually write.
I know, it's hefty,
It's got a, huh.
but
How is
my
that
hope
worded?
is that it hits all the high points and it's broad
Right.
enough, right? Because if you get part of this is tsunami preparedness means a whole lot of things. And so
Yeah.
I've intentionally left it broad so that it can cover quite a bit. Like you don't know in the future what you may want to support,
Right.
right? So this kind of leaves that open.
Right. Mhm.
Can we talk about this sentence offline? As long as we keep the meaning the same, it's making me unhappy.
Yeah.
Oh, as a sentence?
This,
Yeah, I think we can construct the same ideas.
While
And
lengthy, I do believe it is grammatically correct. However,
I did not say that.
I totally get where you're coming from. It is a lot to chew on in one sentence.
Well,
Yeah.
just read a little Proust, and you'll feel that that's a very short sentence. But
I
so
never got very far in Proust.
yeah. I mean, one sentence lasts about 10 pages.
Yeah.
Um, so Sarah, is there any when we say okay, let's say we're supporting the county. Policy is we're going to support the county. Is there anything in county whatever that says emergency services like fire halls should be located outside of a hazard area, including
Yes. Yes. So two places. The one that people know the most about are building codes, right? Because critical and essential facilities are not allowed under building codes to go into
okay.
the tsunami inundation zone. And if you recall, the county tsunami hazard overlay zone, I took a lot of that and put it in. And what I also did was, because using the fire hall is a great example. So Chief Ader and I've had a lot of conversations about stuff like this. And so you have your prohibited areas that aligns with building codes for essential and critical facilities. And then in our code, there's places where it could require a conditional use, like the Kingfisher Apartments and others, where the Planning Commission did an evaluation based on adequacy of evacuation routes, lighting, etc. So I put it in two different ways. Just also recognizing that in some of our areas, even if they're not in the XX large area, but in an inundation zone, right? Because the tsunami overlay zone captures most of the t-shirt sizes of Dagami, for lack of a better phrase. To have that conditional use review process for that, because in some of our communities right now, we're just limited.
Well, I'm looking at, and I've talked to the chief about this, that some recommendation that could come out of this plan is that, again, supporting county policy is to have a recommendation to relocate the fire hall. I'm
Yeah.
trying to think of how, as a general recommendation, I don't know if that's a land use thing. I mean, it's built at a place now where it shouldn't be,
Mhm.
but if there's a general recommendation that that is something that the community ought to, to be moving towards. Um, and
Yeah.
and if it's part of the by this policy that you're just talking about, I mean, it would fit within that. I mean, it's like um, it's a safety piece, and um,
Well, so to give you some insight, did you participate in the Rockaway Beach?
yeah, no,
So,
I
okay,
get the Rockaway thing, and yeah, that's what kind of brought it up to mind is that
sure.
now we actually have it's been discussed. There's a potential location for the fire hall that doesn't actually encroach on resource lands along 101. So, people have talked about that.
Hmm.
But it's not like, oh, well, let's make the plan. But it's just as a recommendation coming out
Right.
of this.
So there's a couple of ways that I see that because I think what we want to be careful of are unintended consequences,
Mhm.
right? So one, the zoning has to fit to allow fire stations. They are not generally, they may not be allowed everywhere. So what this policy does is where it's appropriate, it does say we support actions that promote resiliency, et cetera, which can include relocating a fire station.
Mhm.
If it does end up in somewhere like a natural resource area, state law has built in that goal exception exemption.
Well, that's what we did with Rockaway.
Exactly. So the safety net, so that it's not broadly used for, I'd like to do a 50 lot subdivision and I want to get it out of the tsunami inundation zone. So
Yeah.
I want to rezone farm and forest land, right? And I want my goal exception to be supported by the fact that I'm getting out of the tsunami inundation zone.
Yeah. Now I know.
So the safety net of where that exception exemption is appropriate, like focused on critical and essential facilities, I think is built in for us. It makes the process easier if there ever had to be a zone change in a natural resource zone.
So if there was a recommendation that the community supported coming out of this plan, would it be in a recommendation that fits within the land use piece of this, or would it be in the appendix, other recommendations that the community would make?
Right. So the policy, we could write a specific policy to support relocation of critical and essential facilities that would dovetail with this, right? Because the
Mhm.
other thing is in Tom and reading that for tsunami preparedness, I think that the policy title needs to be adjusted too, because I
Okay,
think it's many things related to tsunami preparedness.
well, is it something other than preparedness? If it's kinds of preparedness, then this still works. Is there something
Yeah.
other than preparedness?
I don't know. I was thinking more like, I don't know. I don't know. Resiliency is the word that comes to my mind, but I don't know how to put it in that. So just something for food for thought. I'm not saying it needs to change, but that is something that was crossing my mind. But I would say to Guy's point, we could add a sentence that's specific to critical and essential facilities and supporting relocation I just want to be careful on how that intersects with things like the conditional use criteria, because the suitability of the site is equally as important as well as the character of the area.
Right.
And so that's where
Yeah.
I don't know how to safely do that without opening unintended consequences.
Well, the
I
conditional
got a
process is always going to be.
proposal.
What, Guy?
No, I was just going to say that in terms of a recommendation to relocate the fire station doesn't necessarily say where to locate or to convert natural resource land or whatever. It just says that it should be relocated. And then, of course, it's just assumed that it would have to go through all the normal land use processes to
Oops.
be approved. So,
Right.
So I hacked on this while you were talking and tried to parse it out into bullet points. And I just added the last one on the screen, which is support appropriate relocation of essential services. And it's not, if it steps on any other things, it's not appropriate. So I think that should cover it.
I like that, Tom. I would say relocation of I would say essential and critical facilities, because the service applies everywhere. It's the actual facilities like the
Critical.
station we're talking about.
Okay, that makes sense.
Definitely easier to read.
All the words that were there before are still there.
You know
That's
what's
right.
funny is it took me a long time to put that together, and Tom just
bet.
like whipped it up in 5 minutes while we were talking. Good job, Tom.
Well, I used to do it for a living.
It shows. Thank you.
Do you accept that change?
I do. I think that works.
You
I'd
know,
probably-
we're gonna update this, and we'll have a chance to review it again.
yeah,
Okay.
it works.
Because we shouldn't accept any of these things today. We should be able to look at the changes, make sure we're okay with it. Something new hasn't happened. That's my opinion anyway.
Okay. Well, you're the one who has to put it in there, so that's
So I'm gonna cross this one off my list for now.
yeah.
Okay, because at least we're far enough along.
Yeah, we got stuff to work with,
Okay.
and I'll have to clean this up a little bit because Word is wonderful. Okay, I said it. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I will not say bad words. I will
Yay,
not say-
word.
I'll make it better. Okay.
Okay.
Totally fine. Okay. So
Next.
wetlands development, I am not ready to share that with you. So I have 19, policy 19 for shoreline development.
Okay, here it is.
Okay.
Development in Nesco and shorelands is strictly governed by Tillamook County land use codes to preserve riparian habitats and mitigate severe erosion and flood risks. All construction must comply with natural resource protections, hazard zone regulations, and specific permitting processes to safeguard this delicate ecosystem.
So, Sarah, where does the I mean, we have a golf course that occupies a lot of essential habitat. What are the kind of waivers they get to operate a business?
Well, so that is an existing use, right?
Yeah.
Right. So as long as they are maintaining operations as they always have, There's no requirements, but the moment they would like to expand or alter those operations. So if they wanted to expand the golf course or the clubhouse or like even the Nesco emergency egress route, right? We had to do extensive permitting for that.
Right.
And that was not just at the local level, that was state and federal permitting as well, which is why I said and specific permitting processes, because depending on what the development activity is proposed, it could mean various things. The other thing is that you have rural shorelands and you have protected shorelands, and those follow two different buckets of requirements.
Yeah.
Right. And that's all outlined in the shoreland overlay zone. So that's where trying to keep it open, but recognizing this needs to be protected and there are permitting processes for any type of development.
Yeah. So it's within the tidal area, which is another whole layer, but it remind me of the kind of the classification of the wetland, the golf course.
So there's a few. So this gets back to, which is why I'm not done with the wetland piece yet. So essentially in the comprehensive plan, everything west of Highway 101 is in the shoreland overlay zone.
Right.
Then there's two different types of shorelands. There's rural shorelands, which is the category you are all in for your homes and properties, for those of you that are west of Highway 101, meaning that there are longstanding development rights and you can build or do whatever. The second classification are category shorelands. And this is where the northern part of the golf course comes in. And this is where there is an actual setback, a 25-foot setback from shorelands in Nesco that are part of the significant category piece, which extends all the way up past Nesco North. So when that second plat of Nesco North was going to come in after adoption of the Nesco Coastal Hazards Overlay Zone, remember the property owner at the time was trying to get an application in?
Right.
What hurt that project was those mapped wetlands, also shorelands, went up beyond the golf course, and with that 25-foot setback from development, compromised development of the proposed lots. They were sandwiched in between dunes and the wetlands.
Yeah, no, I remember that.
Right. So part of with policy 19, there are so many factors and variables, if this, then that, and if that, then this, that I didn't want to be too specific, because if I leave something out, I don't want silence to imply that something in the code is no longer applicable. These policies cannot override or dismiss what's in the ordinance. And that becomes really important, like when we have an application and a land use attorney is combing through all of the stuff. Right?
So this doesn't, I mean, we still have DSL regulations within the wetland.
Specific permitting processes, yes.
And I don't know, of course we have, well, I guess the DSL would cover essential habitat. Okay.
Right. So how this policy plays out. So I think maybe that's the way to talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I get a conditional use application, and there's criterion number 2 that says the proposed activity must be consistent or must not conflict with the policies of the comprehensive plan. So this, as part of the community plan, is part of the comprehensive plan policies. So what I'm going to go back and do is, do they have their state and federal permitting? I'm going to make a condition of approval. I'm going to look at everything in our comp plan and our policies and implementing ordinances like the shoreland overlay zone, or looking at to make sure as part of that DSL wetland notification piece, noticing Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, right? That's how I am going to carry out this policy. And then in the staff report, talk about specific goal elements that say they either have these things, they know they need these things, or I'm making requirements that they get these things before we issue permits for development.
Mm.
So that's how this plays out.
So
Right.
if they wanted to build a bridge on the golf course,
Mhm.
they would start with you to get a permit. You would then look to DSL and others to make sure they would permit that.
Mhm.
We have to do the FEMA thing, the no rise stuff.
So yeah, so typically what happens in scenarios like this where we are looking at development proposals in shorelands,
Yeah.
we have a pre-application meeting where all of those local and state agencies are invited. And most of those types of projects require a consultant for assistance. And I will say we are very fortunate that most consultants snap their two, and they are already working with those state and other local agencies before they reach out to me.
Right.
I am typically the last one contacted for permitting projects because they also know some of our work is the easiest.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we address that largely through pre-application meetings, and then we have, as you know, very extensive notification processes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so it is there. I mean, these are good questions. This is important stuff. But to me, when we look at this policy, we want to make sure that it is shown that it's that these activities are regulated and why they're regulated, right? To safeguard these ecosystems.
Right.
Okay, so
It's a shorter sentence. It's actually 2 sentences on this one.
Fewer number or more sentences, fewer words. Yeah, the two ands in a row I was just playing with, and yeah, you got to have them both. I don't like it, but you do.
Tom, I don't either, or I don't like ands unless they come with a comma.
Oh, no commas needed there.
Mm-mm.
It's
No.
not an independent clause, as
That's
my
right.
wife would say.
That's right.
Okay,
Okay.
nobody unhappy with this? All right, then we're going to 21, is it?
So
Yes.
then pot 21. Okay.
And we had a question as to whether or not that should be called that.
natural
I
resources.
think. I don't remember why we had a question mark there. I didn't leave myself a note. Maybe that's okay. Yeah, I think it must be just that we didn't have any content at one point.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it was. I'm going to delete that question mark.
So, and really what I was thinking of when I was writing that was the desire to protect the Hot Creek watershed.
Yeah.
Right. And I understand, even though logging practices fall under the Forest Practices Act, which is state law, and absolutely nothing we can do about that. I think what's important is the messaging here that we recognize that these natural assets provide both direct and indirect economic and environmental benefits to a community. And to me, that was really the punchline of the whole thing.
That my quick reaction was to the use of the word surrounding. I mean, within our community boundary, we have a federal refuge. It's not a surrounding natural resource. It's actually within our own community boundary, as well as other natural resources that are within our community boundary. I mean, the dunes, wetlands, creeks, whatever. I don't know if there's another way of saying it. I mean, I understand all around us. I mean, we have farm, forest, the watershed,
Yeah.
all those kinds of things, but I'm wondering if there's another way to
Uh,
add to surrounding that we can just say that.
In and around, I could
Within and
hack
around.
on that sentence to make that in and around.
Yeah, that would be great.
Well,
First, I'd like to get an
Yeah.
okay. That's not a but there, but a they. It's not an exception, it's an addition.
Ah, there you go. Good
fair
job.
enough. God, I was trying to get all those grammar pieces done.
Oh no, you always have to just figure. Tom's going to find a few,
Tom's gonna find a few. That's right.
and there are
And we
options.
need to
so-
let him so he maybe misses the bigger ones that we're trying to hide.
Oh,
Right?
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. I always leave small things so the big things get ignored. That's a good tactic.
We have someone who does the same thing on the planning commission, by the way.
Oh my gosh. I know.
Um,
I know. He makes me a better writer. I'll tell you that. To give him, that's what I tell my people. Don't worry about it. He's making us better at our jobs.
So actually, if we don't need that word surrounding, protect our natural resources, that includes in and out. We don't
Yeah.
need to be so specific.
Yeah.
You okay with that?
hmm
We can make
Anybody
reference.
not okay with that? Okay.
I would say, though, I would add beaches and dunes. Because for me, I was focused on this really about, again, just thinking about the Nescoan watershed. My focus was on farm and forest land adjacent to the community. So I would say if we are going to look at, and I'm seeing like on page 18, lines 4 and 5 and 6, if natural resources basically are beaches, dunes, streams, wetlands, forests, and meadows, as well as other fish and wildlife habitats. I don't know if you want to add any of those into that policy or reword that part of that policy, Tom, to reconnect it to the environmental stewardship piece.
21 is working out. Yeah, I think that would be important to do. I'll make a note.
Okay.
Okay. And also what else? Fish.
Fish and wildlife habitats. Yeah. Because, I mean, farm and forest goals do not apply within the community boundary because you don't have any farm and forest zones in your community. But to me, one of the things that stuck in my mind was the community's desire to participate in conversations and development proposals that do include those areas, understanding the relationship between these areas and the community, benefits,
Okay.
etc.
I think I now understand what you're saying about surrounding. We can touch things that are not in our community boundary.
Right. So, well, you can't so these policies don't apply to farm and forest areas, but I understand that the community, because of where your watershed is located, the community desires to be a part of process, to like participate and provide comments and processes that relate to these areas.
Okay, so if I integrate somehow the concept of in and around
Yeah.
and add this bit of information, then we're towards what's a reasonable thing.
Do
Am
we
I getting
need
that right?
do we need to say beaches and sand dunes or just sand dunes?
I
Beaches,
would say beaches and dunes. Beaches and dunes is the common phrase.
Take the S out and you got it.
well, you only have so many hands. Is beaches and sand dunes a single concept or two concepts?
Two.
To
Okay,
think.
then it gets a comma. Okay.
All right. So much for my editing help.
you tried, Randall. We appreciate it. Way to throw your 2 cents in there. But yeah, because I think, again, I think this policy is important because of the cause and effect. It's just, I can't apply, when I look at something in the farm zone or the forest zone, I can't apply this policy. But this policy is important because it recognizes that the community supports the rules by which those types of developments would have to adhere to. And to Guy's point, the natural resources that are within your community, then absolutely, it's just, this policy becomes very relevant to that.
So because we've mentioned them here, we don't need this new policy. Is that correct?
I would agree. I think we would be stuck with some redundancy that is not necessary.
If it's redundant, it's obviously not necessary. Don't want to be redundantly repetitious.
Mhm.
That was humor, by the way. Okay,
That was funny. I didn't laugh, but I thought it was funny.
yeah, a lot of people have that reaction. Yeah, that was funny.
Okay.
I don't know what they meant by that. But
Or that was seriously funny.
Right?
okay, this is the last one, and I assumed it meant to replace this paragraph, but that was a guess.
Okay, so I got this stuff marked on my page. Okay, can we go back actually really quick since we're in here to the erosion control edits on page 19, line 6?
I was hoping we'd go back to that.
Sorry. I have a question.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. The erosion control lines 6 through 10.
We don't have the same numbers anymore because we've done some
Okay.
editing.
10 through 13.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that I can be helpful, can someone define for me interference with natural processes? Because any type of human caused change will result in an interference. What we look at is mitigation, right? But do we stop interference? I don't think so. Some of you in this meeting are the experts in that area. But I would like to know what that means.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this, and it could say should avoid interference. And if interference cannot be avoided, something about mitigation, right? Which, Guy, I think in some of the worlds that you and I work in, the first goal is always to avoid.
What about
But understanding that we can't, then it becomes mitigate.
what about minimize?
I love that word.
Instead of avoid, minimize.
Yeah. Because I think then that gets back to opening the door for mitigation, because no permitting process is going to talk about avoidance. right? Because you can't avoid it because you're doing the work where you have to do the work. So like the avoidances, are there any alternative locations or any upland locations? And most of the time that's a no, it's got to happen right here.
Well, if we took the same approach, um, let's say, Sarah, on our most recent
Mhm.
hearing, um, we there's going to be so let's say I live along Sutton Creek over in South Beach, and
Mhm.
I'm going to do something, build something. Uh, I may not have to by by any building standard or whatever. I may not have to do anything to prevent runoff into Sutton Creek. But do we want to have something that says, okay, I'm going to build up my backyard, create this, big patio, garden place, whatever it might create some runoff into the creek. Um, I'm not, it seems to me, and go back to the mitigation thing, uh, it seems that it should have in my preferred language, it would have a zero impact on the creek because of the mitigation efforts that you would take to prevent runoff, in particular sediment, those kinds of things, into the creek. So,
And you know that
pardon?
zero is a pretty stringent.
Well, it's close to, I mean, obviously, I mean,
That's
but
right.
it's to avoid. So, for instance, so mitigation plans, you know, I don't think we put a percentage on it, but I think we have to walk away from a mitigation plan that's we're confident that is pretty much neutralizing any potential impact on the creek or stream. Um, yeah, I don't know how to.
So let me help with this because I completely agree with what you're saying. So, okay, let's use your example of Sutton Creek. Sutton Creek, Nescoin Creek. Isn't there one more? Why can't I think right now?
It
There.
runs through the village
Right. So those are all
for sure.
mapped estuary because they're all tidally influenced, which
Well,
means the 50-foot riparian setback applies. And I'll use like the Proposal Rock subdivision area. Butte Creek is the other one, right? Butte, Sutton,
Hawk.
Nescoin, Hawk. Thank you. That's okay. So Proposal Rock subdivision, and I would say even like where Hawk Creek Cafe is and some of the lots along Hawk Creek in the village,
yeah,
they cannot meet that 50-foot riparian setback and develop. There's just simply not enough room on the lot,
yeah.
on any of these lots. So we go through that riparian exception review process, which the community would receive notice of. And part of that process is that riparian habitat, the habitat value determination by ODF&W. And like the subdivision we heard the other night, Guy, we have them work with ODF&W on their mitigation plan
Right,
because we are not the experts.
right.
So the process is already built in for anyone who can't meet that setback to work with ODF&W on that mitigation plan. And sometimes, as you know, ODF&W may suggest a greater setback that can still be accommodated and allow for development.
So if I'm in, doing something in my backyard, especially over in South Beach, where this along Nescoin Creek and Sutton Creek would be the most exposed, I may not necessarily have to go to the county for a permit. Uh,
Right.
and so part of this is, kind of a persuasion, kind of a persuasion thing of saying, if you're going to do something in your backyard, mitigate the potential damage or potential impact that you're going to have on the creek.
Mhm.
So it's not always part of a permitting process.
Mm-mm.
Um, so the language here is a policy.
Right. And the policy, so you're right, because some development activities don't require a land use review process, right? This isn't just about building a house. But
Right.
in the riparian section, which for those of you that may be interested is section 4.140 of the land use ordinance, it also talks about removal of trees, mowing, planting, maintenance of existing lawn, vegetation removal. It talks about like you must maintain all trees and at least 50% of the understory vegetation on a property. So even though maintaining your yard doesn't require a zoning permit, these pieces are still baked in for property maintenance. The biggest issue we have is enforcement and knowing if and when, because people cut down trees all the time, or they clear half of their property, and unless someone calls us or ODF&W sees it floating a body of water, we don't know. But I don't know how to make this more punchy.
I would take out the term processes, natural processes, and I would just offhand, I would put natural habitat. Um,
So would it minimize impacts to natural habitat?
yeah. So, especially, if I'm doing something that's going to create a lot of sediment or I'm
Mhm.
cutting down all vegetation and it's going to heat up the water, all those things are
Mhm.
destructive of the habitat that creek is.
Well,
Um,
and do you think that statement then is consistent with the all trees and at least 50% of the understory vegetation within riparian corridors? Do you think this better aligns with what we have for code? Because we need that consistency.
yeah, I think so. I think it would also, um, there's something that maybe the CAC could eventually take up with the two major HOAs in South Beach, uh, looking at their HOA requirements and the CAC working with them to, put things within the HOA CCNRs to better protect the two creeks that run through them. But I mean, that's another step out there. But this statement, I think, is fine. Yeah.
The
So,
other thing could, Mhm. Go ahead, Tom.
I was just want to make sure, kind of cure a little bit of my ignorance. I'm assuming that a riparian means those areas that could be flooded, or because Sutton Creek runs through my property. And
Yeah.
am I included in that? It's not tidally influenced. Uh, is there a
So
map?
so any body of water is susceptible to the riparian section. So basically it's the corridor, it's a defined corridor along a body of water. So
So I'm
so your setback is less because you're not tidally influenced up where you live.
okay. So
So
I'm about 200 feet above the ocean.
right. So Tom, just so you can see, just kind of so everybody, so we actually define
Right.
what the riparian corridors are.
Ah,
So you're going to fall in one of these buckets, Tom.
okay.
But the parts down in the lower part of South Beach and in the village, because those parts of the systems are identified as part of the estuary because they are tidally influenced, they actually fall into the 50 feet.
Okay.
So how we as staff confirm that is we pull the estuary maps. And then for areas where it's close, we rely on ODF and W to tell us whether a certain section is estuarine and tidally influenced or not.
Okay.
Yeah. So
the answer is there is a map. And where would I find that map?
there is not a riparian map.
No.
No, it's all controlled by this language. And then the zoning maps show the areas of the creeks in Nescoin that are determined to be estuary. And then there's language in the estuary zones that affirm where those actual boundaries are. So there's no special map. It's all controlled by text. But what I'm showing you, the reason why I'm showing you this is
You're not
because-
showing anything. I can stop sharing and you can share.
Oh, it says I'm sharing. Oh, shoot. Okay.
You are.
Now you are.
Oh, okay. So riparian corridors are defined as A, B, or C.
Oh, well, greater than 15 feet in width. Sutton Creek, where I am, if it gets 15 feet in width, I'm going to be concerned.
Right, exactly.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. So it's there, but I think, that's why my question to Guy, because if you read through this, it shows you how to measure to get your setback, where your setback boundaries fall, depending on if you fall in A, B, or C. It tells you that everything has to be outside. It gives you that exemption process, which includes that determination of habitat value by ODF and W. So we rely on that a lot. They're a great partner. And then here's that piece about in any riparian corridor, whether it's 50 feet, 25 feet, or 15 feet, here's the pieces that apply. So that's why I asked Guy, does that language change better align specifically with this section? Because there's no permit required for this work. If you can imagine me requiring everybody to get a permit to do yard work, I mean, people want to string me up already. Just, wait till that little nugget fell. So this is where Guy's wording of the policy, or the statement in the community plan, I just want to make sure that he agrees that it aligns with all of this.
Yeah.
So, because I'm not, for the record, I will not be requiring zoning permits for activities in riparian areas that fall within these exemptions.
So I've got a
Thank
tree
you.
that fell across Sutton Creek. It's not blocking the creek, but it's across the creek. And I intended to take it out, salvage the wood because it just fell over.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that. Okay. Good.
Well, maybe. So people, I get that call all the time, and I appreciate when people call me first. If it falls across a body of water, it may now become habitat and part of waters of the state. So I would tell you to call ODF and W before you drag that tree out and chop it up.
It's not touching the water. It's by 4 feet. It's crossing an area that's a little bit of a channel.
Okay.
It could be a bridge.
The channel crossing part, just, I'm not going to know whether you yard that out and cut it up or not unless one of your neighbors calls me. So I would say, if you want my official answer,
Gotcha.
is we would not regulate that, but please call ODFW to make sure you're not violating any state laws by pulling that out and cutting it up.
I can leave it raw. I don't care.
Yeah, I'm not saying you might be just fine, but I want to make sure nobody gets into trouble when they have good intentions. So
I was just looking for some free wood. Oh well.
And it might be fine, but that would be my official answer if you called me.
Now, of course,
If I call you, I'll expect that. Okay, so are we not unhappy with what's here?
Now you got to reshare.
I got to reshare. Okay.
You got to reshare.
Fine.
That is part of this process that I look forward to every time is Tom and I dueling, sharing screens.
Okay, I believe I've changed it to what I understood the conversation to be. I think that's enough caveats.
Yeah. The only thing is surrounding lowlands needs to be land disturbance on slopes surrounding lowlands needs to be strictly controlled. So I guess I would ask, I'm not sure if strictly is the right, I don't know if strictly should be omitted because what does that mean? And when we talk about land disturbance on slopes surrounding, are we talking about all of Neskowin? Are we talking about, right? Because you guys got some slopes on both sides of Highway 101 that arguably with runoff, what does
I
that mean
think
for the lowlands?
the word strictly does not actually add anything to the sentence, just grammatically. Unless you define strictly, which I don't think we want to do.
And what do we mean by controlled? So that was my other question.
Is it
I would thought there would be
Could it be
standard practices
managed?
for
managed is what comes to mind.
I like that word.
Yeah.
Right.
managed.
And we do that through actually on sloped areas through geologic hazard report review, right? They're required to provide their methods for runoff, controlling runoff and mitigating erosion.
Managed for runoff doesn't make sense. To minimize runoff or to avoid runoff, something. For runoff doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's not to the benefit of runoff, it's to
Avoid.
of no.
Runoff caused by land disturbance on the slope surrounding our lowlands needs to be
Avoid runoff. Yeah.
As much as feasible? Or do we want to
That's
soften it?
qualification. I don't know.
You know how much I love my long sentences. I'm wondering if there's a way you could combine the last two sentences because they're two different areas, but it's the same goal to minimize impacts to natural habitats. Am I reading that right?
Okay. Yeah, I think I can make that probably a sentence in 2 bullets. That makes sense? Would that work for you?
That works for me because it's the upper slope and it's adjacent too. But ultimately, what we're trying to say is mitigate and minimize impacts to natural habitats. Because there are areas, I would argue, even wetlands or small springs and creeks on the uphill that eventually make their way and are part of that larger watershed, right?
Yeah.
So there's that cause and effect there too. And that's all I'll say because I'm not an expert in that. But I don't know. Some of you could probably speak more eloquently to that. But to me, when we talk about erosion control and sedimentation control, it's not just when we think bigger pictures of our bays and our oceans and our rivers and our creeks. It's all of those springs and those other things that we don't see or know about that are there at the time of development.
Maybe it's 2 or more, huh?
Maybe, yeah.
I'll take a stab at it and run it past you, Sarah.
Okay.
Okay. This is a bad sign here. I'm acquiring things to do. Try to avoid that.
How could this happen?
Okay. Are we done with this?
I think so.
I think for the moment.
Okay.
So we went to
We
21.
did. And now we have the,
24.
what was 24 is now later.
Mhm.
It's on page 20. Yeah, it's still on 24. It's strange.
Yeah. Okay.
Was I correct in assuming that that was supposed to be a replacement?
Yes. And so here's, okay. So the other thing
I
real
can,
quickly is I'm still working on the dark sky edits. And I'm trying to think how to word something that anticipates some sort of lighting ordinance updates coming that promote dark skies. So as soon as I get past Oceanside and Neoconi updates, I'm back to that. So we want to make sure whatever we put in for dark skies anticipates and is consistent with what's coming in that work. But so that's the other one I have highlighted. But in terms of the public safety and transportation, I was trying to come up with a policy that embodied the things that we have been talking about and gives room to support the transportation system plan updates that Public Works and DCD are working on with ODOT.
Yes.
Right, because we've got all these things that are swirling around, and I was trying to create a policy or a statement that pulls them all together.
okay, so this is a potential policy.
Right. I'm not sure. Yeah, I guess I would ask you where you would want to see it. I think it would do well as a policy with those desires outlined above it. Right? Because I don't want to take away from
Oh, okay.
the work, the desired work. And what really stuck in my mind too was the conversation that we had this last weekend about a public safety task force. And understanding again that the desires of the community to do that work are wholly part of this community plan. But what could we put in the community plan from a land use perspective that whatever the direction the board and the sheriff's office want to take with that larger endeavor, what could we put in here that supports that work?
Okay, so it's a policy to support the sentiment in the original section, the original paragraph. Am I getting that right?
I think that's right. I just don't know if you guys agree. So I'm trying to figure out how to make a policy that's appropriate to this community plan. We're recognizing that other desire to do bigger work that involves others outside of the land use arena.
May I comment on that?
Sure. Nancy,
Okay.
go ahead.
Thank you. So I'm not sure, this may be new to some people here on this subcommittee, but thank you very much, Sarah, for bringing this up, because we've been talking as part of the fireworks efforts of this, the fireworks ordinance kind of opened up a general indication that there's some possible public safety efforts that we might like to do as part of the NCAC, and we still need to talk about this with the board. But seeing if we can go beyond strictly land use and talk and expand the fireworks efforts into a general public safety area. So, and Sarah's taking on discussing this with the county, other areas of the county for us. And so thank you. And so appreciate your wanting to put that into the community plan. So that's kind of the background in case some of the people on this subcommittee weren't aware of what we were doing. So thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. And if you like the wording the theme of this policy, which is more transportation focused, I can write a similar one for other public safety matters that are outlined in the community plan. And I think you can still talk about your desires to pursue those things, as Nancy's talking about. But then again, it's the policy that's really the sticking point. I can come up with a similar policy for public safety.
Oh, that would be fabulous. Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
we would call, what do we call this one? Transportation?
Yeah.
So I have a question about the part that is in the black about the safety aspect where it, well, anyway, I don't know exactly where this fits, but I'd just like to throw it out here. In regards to the questions that we were talking about earlier about the tsunami route from the beach to the egress up the hill, I was just thinking about that road in general as one where there's a lot of pedestrian use for people who are more comfortable walking on streets than on the beach, sometimes because of the waves and sometimes just the instability of the sand. But whatever, it's used recreationally in addition to access to the residences along that street. And I'm wondering if anywhere in our plan, if the whole concept of that being a private road is just too controversial and it doesn't apply to us making a public plan, if it should not be discussed, or if there's a place to put that kind of desire for as many places as possible to be open for pedestrians.
That's a great question, Lori. I think if we put something aspirational in relation to community connectivity, I don't think it would be a policy. I think that maybe goes in our vision and desires and values. And then where that focus is really taken is like through work with Public Works as the road authority. It's this safety task force that if I understand from what I've heard in meetings and from Nancy, goes beyond fireworks. It is the public safety piece. It is things about emergency preparedness and tsunami preparedness. And I think that's where those conversations are most appropriate, is in that other realm.
Well, I do believe that pedestrian access to things for safety is important because we won't always be able to get vehicles through on the roads, et cetera.
Right.
Actually, that may be the case with fires or earthquakes or floods or a variety of things. But also, I went to the Public Works Transportation Zoom meeting, and I think I was like, it probably sounded like a broken record because I kept talking about pedestrian access, which was not, I think really what their intention was more like, how do you get on and off the highway? And do we need a traffic circle? And, so the pedestrian part of that, I mean, I definitely was treated with respect and they listened to what I had to say, but it obviously wasn't the priority of the committee, or at least the input. Or maybe I'm the only one that's thinking about it, but I was the only one that was talking about it.
I would say from being a part of that committee, that is the focus. That is an area of focus. Yes.
Okay.
So I am so glad that you were there and you brought those things up. I mean, it's been kind of a smorgasbord and kind of a bit of an unpredictable, the topics have not been consistent in every meeting because they were definitely community focused, but I think you brought up some relevant points, and it is pedestrian focused because the whole part of that grant is the multimodal piece, the non-vehicular piece, and it's for unincorporated communities, which is why we're doing that outreach. So I think you're going to definitely see some good work come out of that process. We just haven't seen it yet, because the consultant team is still gathering information. So
So in the part that we do here on the plan, I just want to make sure that in each one of these paragraphs, if there's something more we need to put in there about pedestrians and I get it that it's not necessarily in the safety aspect for the recreational use also, but I mean, the roads are being used for recreation in addition to just driving. And now there's this whole new issue that I never ever considered before, was that I might be walking on someone's private property when I thought I was walking just on the side of the road.
That is a mixed bag on both ends. Some people think they have more property than they actually do, and vice versa. Right. But I think, so I would say also part of the pedestrian piece, there's the potential discussion of creating a one-way road system in Nescoin to give pedestrians more room. Right. So that ties into a lot of this work too, but that is all in that transportation planning document through Public Works. So, I think you're right that we need to keep emphasizing the desire for pedestrian friendly community, and put that everywhere that we can. But knowing that a lot of that work will come not from this work, but from the work of others.
Yeah, it's in fairly well sprinkled throughout the document, as I recall. So I'll look for other places, but I believe it's at least 4 or 5 times mentioned, at least in passing. Yeah, like when we talk about paths between neighborhoods and things like that.
The whole pedestrian thing along 101, which we've raised and having some type of quarter. I guess this weekend, Jersey had cars parked on 101 illegally, but still, I mean, no one's enforcing it. So you had people parking along 101, getting out of their cars on 101 and walking down the road to get to the beach. Not uncommon when it's, really hot over in the valley. So it's just another component of, I mean, no one's going to enforce, we're not expecting state police to come along and start towing cars, but we've seen at times cars flying from the fire hall all the way past, the Proposal Rock Inn and on the 101. So it's a dangerous thing. So
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you guys think about this policy? Does that hit on?
I think it's functional for now, and I think that the Transportation Safety Task Force or Public Safety Task Force that seems to be in the works is a really good and important thing. So I think it gives us a footing, and I think there may be more to do when that work comes to a head. I don't know how much we alter the community plan
Well, we
as
wouldn't,
we go
Randall.
along.
Yeah, we wouldn't, because that task force, if it evolves in the way I'm wondering if it's going to, will have a charge outside of land use, right? But I think what this does is it supports it, and that's why I also put where deemed appropriate, because land use doesn't do the speed evaluation. Land use isn't going to determine if physical speed control facilities need to be installed. But a physical speed control facility isn't just a roundabout or a stop sign or a traffic sign. It can be intentionally narrowing with vegetation or sidewalks or other features, different road corridors. Because if you have wide corridors for too long, people speed because they're comfortable. But when you start narrowing it down, the human psychology behind transportation planning is fascinating, by the way. But there are all kinds of mechanisms and types of facilities to help address community livability concerns, but none of those are within the land use realm. And quite frankly, as many of you have found out one way or another, the land use rules do not supersede the road authority for various improvements or activities within a road right of way.
Mhm.
Right. And so that's where, in looking at the community plan policy, this recognizes and supports that work and expresses that desire for this work to be done. But it also acknowledges that, you know, there are other places that are going to make those decisions. We're supporting that.
Yeah, so in that sense, I think it establishes a foothold.
Right. And we can point back to this and say, hey, we really support what you're trying to do.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, that was when we look at pages 24, 25, which Tom may now be offset slightly. That was my way of trying to create an umbrella policy where we could work on the language of some of these other things that are not policies, but are more those desire statements or value statements with that policy then that supports the work. Because I think if these are things that the community desires that are outlined on these pages, I think we can lead them in. But again, it's that policy that's the piece that matters for purposes of.
So we can couch these as being aspirational or
Yeah,
something like that.
yes. And then going back to what I said previously, if you like the way I structured the policy for transportation, I would do one for public safety
Okay.
and do it in a similar fashion. But I just wanted to make sure that you guys would support that before I did that.
I'm quite happy with it.
Okay. Okay. And then that is as far as I have gotten. So I think then where that leaves me is down at the bottom with riprap. Looking at pages 28 for the tsunami routes, I'm going to see how I can tie that back into the policies, PUD, and then the three things on the back. And I will track down the continued Kinnickinnick beach access conversation now that I know confidently what area of the community you guys are talking about.
Yeah,
And in that area, there's actually two accesses. So it'd be good when you're talking about one to just find out about the other two also.
Can I show you guys the map again real quick? Because I think I can see them on the aerial imagery overlaying tax lots. And then that way, at least you guys can confirm, Lori, to your point about the two accesses, just to make sure I'm in the right area.
Yeah, I know between which properties, at least the first one is between south of north of Knapp. Knapp might be like three owners.
I'm going to share my screen.
KNAPP.
So, okay. So, let's see. Okay. So here is the S curve right here. Okay. And I didn't want to go that far out. Okay.
Do you have a map that shows the fire hydrants?
No, I do not.
Okay.
Okay.
That's how we go by it.
Okay. So here is the S curve. And looking at the aerial imagery, and here's 800. So here's that sleeve we talked about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you talk about north and south, there's let me see if I can.
So I think the other one that I'm thinking of is off of the screen right now. It's farther to the north than what you're showing.
Okay.
And that was Snyder's. It was right adjacent to the Snyder's, property,
probably right
but
there.
they sold it.
Right here or right here. Is it bake? Well, they're all improved.
It's probably, or it could, well, I don't know. Actually, I'd have to go walk there and count the houses. I mean, one of us could do that. We could go just
Yeah,
look
I
at the
think
addresses.
let's do the addresses and send it to Sarah.
Just email it to me would be great.
Yeah. Okay,
So
we'll do
Sarah,
that.
what is the strip that runs north-south there, parallel to Hawk?
Is that one that we looked at by tax law 800?
It's just it looks like an easement type. I mean, I don't know what the
Yeah,
legend says that is.
it does. And it doesn't say anything.
Hmm.
And this layer like comes off of the tax lot layer. So as you know, the other thing is we just have to be really careful of knowing that it's
So it's not a tax
information.
lot. It's
It,
not a tax lot.
it is right now on this map, it is not depicted as a tax lot,
Right.
but it doesn't mean that it's not, right?
It seems more plotted as a road along with Los Angeles.
Exactly.
That other,
Yeah.
the big one is
Mhm.
Los Angeles, and this seems to be a side
Well,
passage.
and then my question is, like, just looking at the aerial imagery, I mean, it looks like it kind of meanders. It doesn't stay within
Oh, the
wherever the
Yes.
beach access is. It does not, because see how this is very,
It's
like,
definitely not a straight, it's not a straight path. It doesn't look like you're
Right,
walking down
right.
a road. You are meandering.
okay.
So
sure.
it probably initially was some kind of, okay, this can happen, but then it just created its own pathway based on where trees grew and everything.
Exactly.
Right, because you can see some of the defined areas where, like,
Yeah,
see
it
that
comes
it's
outside.
clearly here, and then it is not. So I think that's the other thing, which also is why it would be good.
The ground truth it.
Yeah. And how does that align with community efforts for permission or whatever it is? Because
Right.
you may be talking to these folks down here. Who is that? That is the Sloans, part of the conversation. The Sloans may have to be involved if where you are
Mhm.
actually walking, or
Yeah.
vice versa, whoever owns 700. And then if you give me the address, like the closest address to the other one, then we can figure out where it is. Because I mean, this, like, there's a trail here, but it might be for that house. And this house you can see very faintly has a trail, and so
The county property. All right. So right there that's 100's a tax lot.
yeah, and there's multiple 100s up and down the strip, right? Because there's different maps. So this one is owned by Quirin.
100, yeah.
And then this larger one, it's in an LLC.
Where did the lots? It's the second fire hydrant where the county property is. It the second fire hydrant where the county property gets access to?
Like the older, the vacated Kiwanda Beach plats.
Yeah, that the recreation management or recreation natural piece is.
So there's some pretty prep. Oh, look at that. Look at that opening right there.
Mhm.
So this is the county property, 1900 and 1900. They're on two maps, but ironically they have the same tax lot number, which should have never happened. That's so confusing. But if you look, if here's the road,
Yeah,
There's not a lot there.
there's a stub there.
Hmm.
So I'm wondering if that fire hydrant is close to that stub.
right.
And because this is a tax map layer, the other thing we have to do is verify that where the tax map has these lines is correct. because that's why all of the tax maps have those disclaimers, tax and assessment purposes only. But that would make sense because there's a visible trail that appears to shoot out somewhere over here.
Yeah.
And Lori, that might be the northerly one you're thinking of.
Yeah, it could be. It seems farther, but I have a hard time with proportions when I'm looking at these maps
Same.
about
Yeah.
what the distance means.
Yeah. I know. Yeah.
But,
The other thing would be right here, but the property we just talked about is right here. So I
Yeah.
don't think it's that aerial because I think that might be too close. So it's got to be something up here. So
Okay.
if we can't establish that one of the ones that historically we've considered access, I wonder if it's possible to do something with the fact that the county owns those two 1900 lots. And really the only part that we really need to negotiate with somebody is a part between the 1900 lot and Hawk. And maybe there is somebody along that Hawk that has a portion of their lot that they would consider allowing a tsunami trail or a more general trail to go to. Assuming once again that once we get to that Hawk Street that we're allowed to be there, though in a tsunami, I wouldn't probably care about the property rights issues, but
No.
in all of the Dagami meetings I've sat in, when something happens, I think all bets are off for property rights and trespassing. So, but to your point, I think what we have to decide is whether we leave Kinnickinnick in or not. I don't think it will be detrimental one way or the other. The safe course of action would be to pull it out of the community plan if we are not absolutely sure. In the meantime, then we also write a policy that supports the work, Lori, you are talking about that is outside of this land use process.
Yeah.
Right. So how does the community do that? So I think that there's a few ways, and that might be even something like thinking about this task force and other things, the South Tillamook County Emergency Volunteer Corps, right? I'm thinking this is going to turn into a much bigger conversation and happen in the right place with the right people at the table. But how can we do that work here to come up with a statement that supports that work? So that's what I think we do.
Can we leave the Kinnickinnick in because it's a historic use? And at this point, we don't know that it needs to be removed. Because once we remove it, then the assumption is it's not. Not. If we leave it in, somebody can prove that we don't have the right to use it. But at this point, it is being used to some limited degree by the public. And so, I want it in, so I'm trying to make an argument here, obviously.
The only thing I would say is that because this is a land use document, I totally respect that. But because it's a county land use document, I don't want to put the county at risk of somebody saying you've arbitrarily dedicated this as a public access when you shouldn't have, right? Because now I've got it in an adopted document. So I think if we want to keep it, we take out the word public. And maybe I acknowledge different beach access points. Because it's the public designation that's concerning me if we don't know for sure.
So I think at one point there was actually a sign there that said Kinnickinnick.
Yeah.
Like if there's
I see signs all the time that are not true.
Even though that was not like a homeowner sign. That was like, it looks like a county sign.
Yep. Okay. So that actually helps us. If that has been the case, someone should have some documentation on that. I'm just, as a public document, I just want to be very mindful of what we're saying.
Right.
I don't want to get any of us in hot water.
So Lori, we could take a picture of the other sign that is still there farther up. It still says beach access, and we can maybe track what kind of sign is that? Is it a county sign, a state sign? You know, it's a legit sign. Nobody made it up in their
Yeah.
And if
basement.
you,
So,
well, you'd be surprised what people can do. There's
okay.
some legitimate looking signs out there all
Hey,
over. But Randall, if you send it to me, if you guys send me a picture, I will send it to OPRD and I will send it to Public Works
Chris, right,
and say, hey, is this one of your signs?
right.
And let's
Okay.
see what somebody, if they're like, yeah, that looks like a sign we made, or but if we can keep it in, Lori, I am fine with that. I just want to make sure we have the right designation and I don't get in trouble later.
Right.
one of my questions to Chris a few weeks ago was, uh, how can the county have two roads, Kinnicknick and whatever, plus own the recreation natural property without having access?
Access to it.
It's like, it's to me, if I buy property, I mean, there's some legal thing, whatever,
Mhm.
that says that I have to have access to the property. His response then was the access is through the beach. So
Yeah.
it's you can access the county roads, the two roads, and the recreation management county property to the beach.
From the beach.
You don't need the road.
It
Yeah. Well,
highway.
and that's where, so when they do vacation of plats, those are things that they must take into consideration.
Yeah.
Right. And Guy, that process happened long before you and I came on board. So
Oh yeah. All right.
I'm sure that the access was part of the conversation. I'm just not sure how that went. I find it interesting too. And maybe that little stub out we saw, that
Yeah,
technically
to
is
explain it.
that fronting and abutting, even if it's not improved access, it has fronting and abutting to a county street. So I'm happy to I think we can figure that out as we look at those two access points if we're in the right spot.
And speaking of signs, by the way, we have a tsunami escape trail or whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
thanks to the local person who made the sign, put it up illegally on federal property, kept the sign there until finally the feds gave in and said, okay, you've had this sign up forever. Remember that, Rand? I mean, it was not an official sign for years. It was
Yeah.
somebody designated as a local person designated it as the escape route.
You would be
Federal
shocked
property.
at
It
the
worked.
signs that we
It
see.
worked.
And yeah, and some of them look legit. I mean, there's some good work out there. But
So it's 6 o'clock. That's 2 hours we've been
Mhm.
going at it. So I kind of like to limit these. But we made it through your material, but we haven't made it to our public meetings schedule and how we're going to design them so that they work well. So there may be um, some homework here on the side by the committee so that our next meeting we can hatch something rather than trying to hatch it all in the meeting.
So
So
if you want to meet to discuss your community plan outreach, I would do that as a public meeting.
Oh, yeah. But we can come
okay,
up with individual ideas about.
right.
This is
Well,
this is for preparing for the next meeting so we can have something to work with, not have to discuss it from scratch. I can take the part of the community plan, which is the introduction and the discussion of the value of the vision, and then really
Okay.
parcel up. Because I suspect what we need to do is take it into however many pieces that is.
Yeah.
But it seems like the introduction and all the way up to and including uh,
Revisions.
yeah, let's see. Sections 1 and 2 seem to be that's a lump, and then each one of the 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are all lumps. And I was going to suggest that we list things as, and I don't know what order, but basically defining our terms for a section, what our goals are and then what our proposed policies are and separate those out. I don't know. That may be the best way, maybe not. I think we have to take a stab at it and see whether or not that's going to work. But I think we should do each one of the sections and do each one consistently.
Also, in
Right.
terms of just throughout working between meetings, you could set up grand pairs and not violate Oregon Public Meeting Law, pairs of you to come up with certain ideas to bring back to the full subcommittee.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And Lori and I were able to work out how to kind of do the hybrid meetings and where and things like that. So maybe we'll work together on kind of the actual meetings themselves, and the content could be, as Tom described, what the content will be in the first meetings with the introduction and the value section. That's section 1 and 2. I think that's accurate, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And and
So
and
I
target
can
that.
work with I can I can work with Guy on that. So Guy and I will
Okay.
work together on at least an approach for the presentation, and you'll work on
Content.
you'll work on the logistics.
Right.
So
Right.
Okay.
do we have an idea when, Sarah, you'll have the last things that you needed to give input on? Because if we're starting to think about, okay, we're going to have meetings, where would they be and stuff, we need to know, would they be in July or August or October?
So looking at my work plan and bidding this in for hearing, I would say we definitely need to be ready to go to hearing late fall. So that means I've got to get with the program and get final edits to you. And then I still need to send this off and go through this with DLCD and council, right? Because I've got all of my state notifications and process to do because it's a land use document. So I can't just, I've got those final steps too. So I would say August, September would be great.
You think you'll be done? Because if you think I don't have the calendar right in front of me, but if you think we're towards the end, we have one more meeting in June, 2 in July, and then we would be 2 in August. So that's 5 meetings.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to me, just from the way things go, that it will take us at least 2 more to get a final document for us to even talk to anybody about.
Yeah,
that's
that's fine.
And that's optimistic. It depends on when you get us stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to be realistic about when do we start trying to, because like, for instance, the golf course is harder to use in the summer. If we're not doing this till fall, it'll probably be pretty easy to use a golf course.
I think if you want to, yeah, I would say September. I think if you start after Labor Day weekend, that
Okay,
gives
so we're
us,
talking.
yeah.
Well, the problem is that there goes all the people for the live meetings. But it seems like 90% of people are used to doing the Zooms at this point, except for we just kind of miss that grist. It's a little more granular when there's people in the room when they're dealing with it, but maybe that's just not when we're ready. So that's a more important than hurrying up and not being ready.
Well, what about towards the end of August? As I appreciate what you're saying, Ryan, about, catching people when they're here.
Engagement. Yeah.
Yeah. If you wanted to do a hybrid.
Labor Day weekend is still
Nutty.
well, yeah, but there's at least a community meeting on Labor Day weekend, and we could do some things at that community meeting.
Yeah, Labor Day is not as crazy as the other ones. It's kind of, people are winding down there. Some of them are getting ready for school, but you couldn't possibly do it over 4th of July, but Labor Day, you might be able to get like a Saturday meeting for us and a Sunday meeting for the community association, something like that. That could be the kickoff. We could make that like the kickoff weekend and say we're finalizing this fall. Come to the Labor Day meeting to
We just got to make sure the Ducks aren't playing that Saturday.
I have no information about that.
Uh,
Okay, well, we've got we're sitting on the egg. We're not ready to hatch, but okay, that will. Why don't we at least get together for some thinking about both the logistics and the content presentation, even if it's a ways off still, because it'll probably it'll go quickly. Summer will go quickly.
And Sarah, you have
So,
the dates, right, for the meetings of community plan subcommittee going
So
forward?
are we, thank you for that, Nancy, are we on every 2 weeks?
Yeah, well, we kind of shifted this last one, so
When is the next meeting, Randall?
that's what we do right now. We sort
Perfect.
this out. So in 2 weeks, it'll be close to the it
Is
will
it
be
on the
the
NC?
29th. Already we're at the 29th.
it's
Okay.
on it's on the calendar. So
Mhm.
And then just for me for scheduling out, if I go every 2 weeks, then so like
Yeah.
then July 13th.
Yes.
Okay. Is
is it every 2 weeks or the, okay, whatever.
Yeah. Usually we just, if we change the schedule, then we just go 2 weeks from then.
Okay.
And here we are.
Okay, what I'll do with the document is I'll clean it up a bit and make those rearrangements I said I'd do. And in the next couple of days, I'll get out a new version. It'll be 45, 46,
46. Yeah. Okay. Any further comments from you, Nancy?
Uh, yeah, thank you. I just want to say thank you to the subcommittee for all your input on the fireworks ordinance. That really helped me, at least, and I think some of the others of us understand what some of the history was, and helped us write that document that was approved by the membership. So thank you. And then it's also helped us as our task force has continued going, moving forward. So just want to say thanks. And thanks for all your hard work on all of this. It's really been quite a job. And thank you, Sarah, for all your support too. I know you've been incredibly busy. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to do this.
Yeah, well, thank you for getting the full content of the meeting today. So that was good. Made it through that. Okay. So we'll see you in a couple weeks and Lori, we'll get together and talk about the meetings and we will see you next time.
Great.
All right.
Great to see
Sounds good.
everyone.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. And let's see, where did it go again? End recording. Stop recording. Yeah, I didn't
And
give
Ran,
you.
if you could stay on for just a minute,